Hello again. Today I'm going to be looking at replacing a 3-port valve in a central heating system. So this is the sort of system where you've got a hot water tank and you've got a header tank in the loft, and essentially the boiler controls, or the timer controls the valve here, which switches you from making hot water to running the radiators as well. And what can happen with the old valves is they can get a bit stiff, and so the solenoid is unable to turn the thing, and therefore the boiler won't come on. So the symptom is you switch on the central heating, boiler won't come on, but you've still got hot water being able to generate. And sometimes, well, generally if that happens, you're going to have to replace this. Sometimes you can get a spanner and you can wiggle it about and loosen it up again, but that doesn't last forever. And you risk, sort of, the more you wiggle it, you risk making it start to leak. So the best thing to do is to replace it. These are all fairly identical, so you should just be able to undo one and replace the other one. I'm not going to guarantee that, but generally speaking they are. It's also worth getting the more expensive ones. So a Honeywell one is generally regarded as the best and will last much longer than a cheap alternative. They're twice the price, but they should last. So you pay your money and you take your choice. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is to drain down the system, because obviously I don't want to undo the bolts when it's still full of water. So first and foremost, into the loft, and we'll cut off the water to the central heating. So here we are in the loft. This is the tank, small tank, no insulation on the top, and this one, as you can see, is open. So what we need to do is stop water flowing into that header tank. So first things first is just get the insulation off. Easier said than done. There we go, all wet and horrible inside. Now sometimes you'll find a valve, which there is in this case, and sometimes there won't be a valve. If there's no valve, the easiest thing to do is to get a piece of wood across the top and some cable ties, and then you simply, I can get in here, you simply lift up the ball valve until so that the water stops, and secure it with some cable ties. What I'm going to do, I'm going to turn off the valve here. So when I've done that, the tank should no longer fill up, and we can test that. Always test it, so when you've turned it off, press it down and make sure no water comes. If water comes, then the valve's not working properly, and what you don't want to be doing is draining the system and it still be filling up upstairs. You'll be there forever. So the next thing I'm going to do is switch off the boiler at the socket. Now do that, the controller's gone off, the boiler's gone off. Okay, I do not want the boiler coming on while I'm doing this. Okay, so that's done. So the next thing to do is to drain down the system. So somewhere at the lowest part of your system you will find something that looks a lot like this. So you can basically put a hose pipe on there, undo this valve, and the water will come out. Should be at the lowest part of the system. There might be more than one. But if you can't find one, then you've got problems. You need to figure out a way of getting water from here by undoing one of these and getting it outside. So hopefully, if it's been installed properly, it will have a drain cock on it. So here we go. I've connected a bit of hose pipe to it. The other end's going to the drain outside, and then you'll notice I've got a drip catching tray in this, because these things always leak, or generally always leak. And then all you do, get yourself a spanner onto the little thing, and you can then start to loosen that, and then you'll hear the water start to flow. Here we are, check the other end, the water is actually flowing out, so there we go. So now I'm here at one of the upstairs radiators. The system's been emptying for a while. What I can do is, using a radiator key, I can turn it, and as you can see, you saw there, water came out. So I know the water level is still above this. So what I'm going to do is keep trying that till eventually water doesn't come out, and that means that the level of water is now below the level of the radiator, and keep going until I'm sure that it's below the level of the actual valve that I'm going to work on. Okay, so this upstairs radiator now, just about here, it's hissing when I open it. See, that one's open, no water's coming out, so I know it's down below this level. And what I'm doing now is I'm going around to every radiator on the upstairs level. I'm opening the thing, making sure that there's no water coming out, because the radiators will hold water and they will airlock. So you'll think you've drained down the system, and then you'll be working on it. Suddenly a big ball of air will go through and a load of water will come out from the radiator. So you want to avoid that. So make sure all the radiators on the upstairs level are empty. And this is the last one now that I'm doing. So again, it should just hiss. You'll hear the air bubbling through. Now I'm leaving all these open. There's no point opening and closing and then running around 100 times. Open them all, they'll all empty, and then you'll be ready to go. And now we wait. It's time for a cup of coffee, or we wait for the system to drain. Probably going to take about 10-15 minutes, depending on how fast the water's flowing. I'm going to keep checking that tall downstairs radiator until finally it'll be dry, and then I'll know that I've got the level right and we can get on with the job. Come for the final check. Okay, you can tell that the water level is now below that level. Okay, so the next job is just to tighten this back up again, so that we are turning off the water, and what's left in the downstairs radiators can stay there, and I won't need to refill them and go round and bleed them all. Okay, that's done. Take the pipe off and we should be good to work on the valve upstairs. Okay, so here we are. This is the valve. There's no more drain cocks. These ones, ignore these are for the shower. So next thing I need to do is undo these 3 compression fittings. Now the nuts here are screwed onto the body of the thing, so to undo them, you undo them as if you're undoing them from the body. You just get a spanner on and then you can undo them. There we go, that one's moving. Now then you find if these nuts are really stiff and if the valve body starts moving around, you'll need some of these with which you can hold onto the valve body while you undo the nuts. And that's important because what you don't want to do is to bend any of these pipes that are coming in and out. Okay, so there's the first one undone, and you'll see you'll get some dripping from it, you always do. And if that doesn't stop dripping after a little while, then obviously put it back on and investigate why there's still water in the system. But there you go, that one's pretty much stopped dripping, so that one is now free. I just got to do the other 2. And this is just the second one that I'm undoing now. Can be quite tight. As I said, as you can see, I'm using these grippers to hold it. And you'll soon know when it's loose, because that one's just about turn it with my fingers now. A couple more and you'll see. Generally you'll get a little bit of water come out. Then we'll go loose, and there we are. That's that one disconnected as well. That's 2 out. Okay, so there's the third one. You notice on the third one, the compression joint didn't come undone. What came undone was the actual valve body itself, because the compression was so tight. But now I've taken off the valve body, I should be able to get these grips on now much better, with a much better grip, and I should now be able to undo that. These are the right way around. I should now be able to get that undone. If that won't work, then I'll get a spanner onto the... There it goes. It's a bit stiff, but it's gone. So now I can just undo that one and we can fetch that third compression joint off. Okay, so here we are. This has come loose now. So top tip with these, by the way, it's which way you hold them makes a difference. If you hold them that way, if you're undoing that and you hold them that way, as you turn, this bottom part bites in and helps you. If you hold them the other way, then the top part's been pushed away and it's much more difficult to hold. If you find you're undoing a nut and these things are slipping, just flip them over and you might find it's a lot easier. Okay, so anyway, that's the third bit coming out. There's the third one. So now we're ready to put the new one in. So what I'm going to do first, I'm just going to inspect all of these, make sure these are clean, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and use the same olives when I put the thing back together again. Don't worry about a bit of black stuff in there, it's just the stuff within the system. And these ones feel okay, there's no sharp jaggedy bits, and they seem to have come off all right. So the problem is, if I need to replace the olives, I've got to get the old one off, and because it's been on there about 100 years, it's going to be almost impossible to get that thing off. The only chance you have is you get your spanner and then you turn it onto the pipe slightly, and then you whack it, and with a few blows sometimes you can get that olive off. Otherwise you're looking at sort of cutting the pipes and replacing, and these are right on bends and joints, so there's a lot of plumbing to do around that if I need to get those olives off. So what I'm going to do is just replace them as is. Now, in the instructions for this, it tells you, see, if you can see there, there's an A and a B and an AB. So the AB always points towards the pump, and then in this one, I'll just have to look at which way around it goes. But essentially, one goes to the coil in the hot water tank. One goes to the radiators. Must not get those the wrong way around. And in this case, I remember that it goes the other way around to the existing one in terms of which way the wire comes out. So don't trust just that you're putting the wire in the right place that the thing's going to match, because it won't necessarily do that. So I've double checked, and in this system, B goes to the hot water tank. So you can see that this one goes up to the tank there, and the other one goes down into the floor, which is to the radiators. So mine's going to go this way around. Now, before I do up compression joints, I like to put a little bit of this stuff on. It's rubbery stuff, and what happens is, not so much forms a seal, but what it will do is give you a bit of lubrication. So when you're doing these up, they'll slide more easily and they won't sort of grind away at things. So I find that really useful. Some people like to wrap a bunch of PTFE tape around. I find that a bit of a fiddle faddle, and it doesn't really seem to work for me. So I find this stuff much better, but again, you take your choice on those. So I've got some of this stuff, and I'm just putting it around the inside of the joints here, so that it acts on the olive. And I'll do it with all three of these. Like that. And then I'm going to put a tiny bit just on the outside of the threads, just to help them lubricate. And this stuff doesn't set rock solid, so it's not like it's going to stop you from undoing it again. So that's in place. Now make sure this is the right way around. Get the wire out of the way. And then we pop this back in place exactly the same way that it came out. First one goes in there, and then make sure it's the right way around. And of course, there we go. And the last one in there. Okay. So the thing to do is, first of all, make sure the pipes are completely pushed in as far as they'll go, which they are, apart from the bottom one, which is falling out. And then we can start to do up the nuts. And we start off by doing up the outside ones here. In fact, they're much smoother than when we took them off. This one's running on a clean thread. There we go, till it starts to feel tighter. And then the bottom one can go in. There we are. And then trusty spanner. When it starts to get tight, again, I'm going to hold the body of the valve with these. I don't want it to be levering against all the pipes and risk bending them. So I'll just do those up now. Okay, so I've come to the final tightening of these now. So I'm going to the bottom one first. And the trick with these is you've got to tighten it up so it's reasonably tight, but not so tight that it damages the olive. So there's a fine sort of balancing, especially when you've got quite a big spanner here. It's easy to over tighten them. So what we're trying to do, and this one's a bit of a fiddle because the shower pump's in the way, so I'm just tightening that now. And really it's a bit of a sort of feel about it. Once it starts to feel like it's kind of biting, but you're not absolutely having to force it. So whoops, knock the camera over. That feels about right. Always better to slightly under tighten, because you can always come back and tighten it more if it starts to drip. And that's what I usually do. So what I've got left to do is now tighten these two, and we're good to wire it up. Okay, we're at the connection box. It's been switched off down at the boiler, but it's always good to have one of these connect and testers, if you like, and you can just put it around here and just make sure that we've got no live wires, just to double check. You don't want to get a shock. You can see in here, this is where the wire comes in from the other one, and you can see, and with a bit of luck, it matches the wires that come here. And what you're expecting to see: green, orange, blue, grey, white, and there's also a stripy one. The green one, in fact, is stripy yellow. And that should match exactly with what you've got here. There should be 5 wires if you've got the standard 5-wire system. If the wires don't match, then either you're going to have to investigate what all these wires are by tracing them back, or get an electrician or a plumber to do it for you. If you're not sure about electrics, get someone to do it for you, because there's a lot of worst case you'll set fire to something or electrocute yourself, both of which are bad. So yeah, that's what we need to do. So I've tested all these aren't live. I can get on with fixing it. Okay, so once I've double checked that these wires are completely dead, what I like to do is to simply snip off the old one under here like this, and then what I can do is push it through here, but I'm still keeping it connected, and that way I can still see which wires go where without having to undo everything. Now the new one, I'm going to route it in a slightly better way, because the way it was done last time was a bit of a faff. And then straight across, so that's routed in a slightly better way, and then that goes up through the hole where I just got the other one from. Now generally speaking, even though you switched off the boiler and you've done a test, generally try not to touch any wires if you can help it. It's possible to short between wires, which can cause things to happen on sensors and things, so best not to touch. Plus you might have got it wrong and there might be a live one in there. Okay, so we'll take this up to here, and now we can start simply replacing like for like. So we'll get electrical screwdriver, insulated one, and we'll take them one by one. So we'll take the green and orange first, which is over here. Undo the screw, pop the wire out, trying not to pop out the other wire that's in there. Pop that in. This is slightly wider, so I'll undo that slightly more till it goes in. Do up the screw, and then really important, give it a little pull, both wires that are there, make sure that it's fixed, and go and do all the others. Okay, so that's connected. I can test all the wires, make sure that they're good, push that back into the box, and then put the lid on. Never apply power to a system with the lid off, just as a general rule, because while you're switching the power off, anything could happen. Little fingers could come and start prying around in there or anything, so always cover it up before you switch the power on. There we are. Do these up, and then we're good to fill up the system. Now filling up the system is almost the reverse of emptying it, and what you do need to do is to go around and check all of the valves on the radiators are shut, because if you forget one, then all the water will come out and fill up the room. You don't want that to happen. First job, shut all those, and then we can turn the water back on, or go up into the loft, start filling the tank again. For the tank again, And before I fill it up, we've got to think about some inhibitor in. You see, from last time I did it, or last time I did something to the system, I left the bottle here. That's really important, because when I come back to it, I can tell what type of inhibitors in, because you're not supposed to mix them. I've never tried, so I don't know what it does, but you're not supposed to mix them. So I'm going to just chuck in exactly the same thing. Now, I was told by a heating engineer once that you can't overdose these things. Better to put a bit too much than too little in. So this is half a system, and this will be about right, one of these in there. It tells you on it how much you're supposed to put in, so don't forget, especially if you've got microbore pipes, because they'll just clog up really quickly if you don't. So really important. So put some of that in. I'll switch on the water over here, and there we go. It's filling up nicely, and then I'll add some of this, chuck it in there, and that will then go into the system and flow around. So that tank should fill up. One thing I'm going to do before I do anything, I'm just going to check that bore cock works, which it does. Okay, let's get down and check everything out. So here's the radiator that I'm filling up, and you'll hear that hissing, and we're just waiting, and you'll hear the water gurgling back into it, and eventually water will start to come out of here and spit a spatter, and we'll just switch it off. So don't undo this too far, just needs like one turn or something, and then we wait. Okay, now that the system has had a chance to fill up with water, I've let as much air out as I can. It's time to test it. So what I've done is switched on the hot water, but I've made sure that the thermostat is turned right off, or the central heating is switched off. So I'm just demanding hot water. I've made sure the valve is switched to auto, and if I have a look now, we'll see what's happening. So here we are with the hot water switched on. I'm feeling warmth coming in from the boiler, and I'm feeling warmth on this pipe, and I'm not feeling warmth on this pipe. Well, that's good, because it's just the boiler, so the boiler loop is working correctly. The next thing I'm going to do is switch off the hot water and switch on the heating, and we should get the opposite, where we get heat coming out of this one. So now I switch it over, the hot water is now switched off and the central heating is switched on, so I've got heat coming in here, and I can feel heat coming out here on the other side. This will still be hot, so I can't really test that, but that should cool down. I can come back and test that that's cool. But here we go, that's definitely getting hot, that's definitely hot, so that seems to be working. And for confirmation, I can start to feel warmth now coming through the radiators. What I'll do now is switch it all off, and I'll let the hot water do its cycle and make sure that these don't get hot when that's happening, but basically that's working. So that's it, 3-port valve installed, tested and working. I tend to come back and just check there's no leaks for the next few days. I was getting nervous that way, but hopefully that was helpful, and maybe I'll see you next time.